Hi, welcome to Wisecat. Okay, so today we're going to be covering two different types of upgrades of Moodle. We're going to be upgrading Moodle from 4.5 to 5.0, which is fairly normal, and then we're also going to cover the upgrade from 5.0 to 5.1. Now 5.1 hasn't been released yet, but it will be released expectedly in about another week. And at that time, you might want to upgrade to 5.1, but you'll find that it's a little bit different to your standard upgrades of Moodle. And so I'd like to, get ahead of things and actually just discuss what those differences are by showcasing the two upgrades, the normal one and the weird one, side by side. So this is that video. Okay, so let's go and have a bit of a look. I will shrink myself down to the corner, and I'm going to get up my my 4.5 Moodle that I've got running right now here. So you can see I'm in the environment window at the moment, and it tells me that I am running 4.5.6 at the moment. And in this 4.5.6 build, it's the latest build, 926, etc. It's a freshly created one. If I go to 5.1, first I'm going to check my environment as well, environment variables, make sure that everything is kosher and it's good, except for it not being HTTPS, but this is running on a Vagrant, so locally, so that's why that is. If you don't have these prerequisites met, by all means make sure that you meet them before you start. And also, I am going to mention this one more time because it bears mentioning again and again and again. Take backups, right? Make sure you have a full backup. The Moodle data directory, the www directory, the www.root, and also a backup of your SQL database. Make sure that you have all three of those components before you try anything in any of my videos, really, because otherwise there may be no going back. Unless you have a backup. So then you can get the back up. All right, anyway, enough about that. You know to take backups, so come on. Make sure that you have your backups. I've got backups because this is a freshly built, pretty much empty Moodle. I do have one course in here that just has like it's just basic test course sort of thing, but I did stick in as well some questions into the question bank. Yep, I stuck some questions in the question bank. You can see I got about 3 categories of, say, 1,200 questions in there. And this is just because I would like to show how when we go to 5.0, this is actually going to change because the question banks are significantly different in 5.0. Also, I've got in here is an assignment. And the one thing that I would like you to pay attention to in this assignment is that this here is not movable, right? So I'm using a rubric here, and this is all squished up. Now, this is something that's an improvement that we are expecting in 5.1. So at the moment, I can move that. Oh, I can move that inside of the annotate PDF window, but I can't really de-squishify the rubric very well. And if you have, say, 4 or 5 different items in your rubric, good luck de-squishifying that. You would have to edit the only recourse that you've really got is to make it full screen, like this, or pop it out, or to not have comments for each of your criteria here. And I've got the good, the bad, the ugly here. Yeah, film stuff. Anyway, so let's go on and upgrade this particular Moodle to 5.0 first. So we're currently, if I go site administration, notifications, I will demonstrate once again that I am on Moodle 4.5.6 plus, and the most recent build of that. And so let's go ahead and move this up to 5.0. So I go to my terminal. Here's my terminal. Okay, let's do this. So I'm already in actually my Moodle directory, which is /srv/moodle/www. Now, pay attention to this at the moment, because this is my web root, my www root. And this is going to be important a little bit later. If you've seen the my video on r.php, you'll probably know what's coming with this. But this is going to have to be changed. This current root directory is going to be, there are going to be some changes happen when we hit the 5.1. That's the weirdness that we're talking about. Anyway, for now, 4.5 to 5.0 is pretty standard. I'll just do a quick git status. It'll refresh my index. Needs to refresh my index. That's a bit weird. But anyway, I'm on 405 stable, and it's all nice and clean and everything like that. Nothing special in here. Not even any plugins, really. By the way, if you are doing this in the real life environment and you have plugins, update your plugins first. Make sure your plugins are all up to date before you try any upgrades. And also, perhaps do a trial run and make sure that your plugins are upgradable to the 5.0 before you actually do it for real, for keeps, and have backups, right? I can't say that enough. Have backups. But anyway, I've got no backups and no plugins because this is a fresh install with nothing else added. So now if I go in here, I've got my git status is done, but I want to change the branch. So I'm going to check out Moodle. Oh, okay. I'll do it properly. Sudo -u www.data PHP, we want to put it into administration mode, right? Maintenance mode. So admin/CLI/maintenance.php, and we're going to -- enable. Right, now that puts it into maintenance mode, and therefore if we try to say access my courses, boom, it says, nah, you're in maintenance mode, currently not available. So yeah, take it out of maintenance mode if you want it out of maintenance mode. Anyway, we're in maintenance mode, which means that also cron is shut down. Any users who are trying to do stuff that's going to write to the database, the SQL database, that's going to be stopped. So now's a really good time to take a dump of the MySQL database. I'm not going to do that because fresh install doesn't really matter, but you should. So be sure that you do that before you do. Then the next thing to do, of course, is a git pull. Make sure that you're up to date before moving forward. And then git check out Moodle 500, because we're moving to 500 stable. And that will check out our Moodle 5.0 code. Boom, and that's switched to it. And the next thing that we can do is we'll do our upgrade.php. And again, doing the upgrade.php using the command line prevents the risk of any timeouts or things like that that are going to mess things up. So this is going to upgrade to 5.0.2. So I say yes to that, and yes, zot, it's going to go. Now, if you have difficulties here, then you should definitely disable cron before you actually go into your Moodle proper as well. There have been some bugs, especially with the question bank changes being that significant. There were some instances of the stamps in the SQL database for the question bank not being duplicated and things like that, and that tripping up the scheduled task that is triggered afterwards. So if you're worried about your question bank not having, there's another one perhaps with tags as well. It's potentially the similar sort of a problem. So if you're concerned about it or something, definitely do, especially if you've got a lot of questions and if you've got questions with tags, definitely do a trial run first and make sure that you've got the ability to roll it back before you go forwards onto 5.0, because that scheduled task needs to change over your question banks. And until that has completed, you will not have the ability to edit questions or add questions or change or use the question banks pretty much in any way until after that conversion is done. So anyway, we'll see this running. I will just let it go because the cron tab, I'll just leave the cron tab enabled at the moment. But now we've got that done, so let's disable maintenance mode, and then we'll go in and have a quick look and see if we can get in fast enough to witness the question bank actually changing. So I've disabled my maintenance mode. Boom, we're on Moodle 5.0 now. that's what that's going to be. If I come in here and go to the question banks, you can see currently it'll say the ad hoc question. It's an ad hoc task, not a scheduled task, but transfer question categories and transfer questions are not yet complete or have failed, and they're just not yet complete because they'll trigger in about another 10 seconds, I expect. Questions previously created may not be transferred to shared course question banks yet. Questions can't be managed or shared until these question tasks are complete. So if you are upgrading to 5, make sure this completes before you say, okay, I'm happy with it, and unlock it and let your teachers come in to wreak havoc and stuff like that again. Okay, so now if I go to site administration, go to server, and let's go to tasks running now, we might see one of them running. There it is, transfer questions is running now. And there will be a whole ton of those. Right? And these are actually copying all of the questions across. I have about 3,000 questions, so it's going to take a little while, and it looks like it's done now. Okay, so you got to see a little bit of it, but yeah. Once it's triggered, once it's done, it should be okay. Now if I go to question banks, and now I see that my test course shared question bank, this is what happens to the question banks as they get put into a question bank here. And you can come in here and see the questions and things like that. They're all in here like this now. And you can have multiple question banks in any course, and also it is a lot easier to use question banks, well, questions from a question bank in one course. You can use that easily in another course. Question sharing has got a lot cooler, a lot easier. This is actually, I mean, it's a little bit tricky to upgrade, but it is a massive improvement. So kudos to all the guys who are working on this project, because this is absolutely awesome. So when you get into this is going to make question banks. So you're going to love it. I got to make a video on this later. Anyway, on with the current topic. So now we're in 5.0. A few things have changed. If I go to, say, edit mode, for example, here, I can add a subsection now. So subsections are now a thing by default. They actually existed in 4.5, but they were switched off by default. Now, if I go to add an activity or resource, here's something to also check out is, I have these tabs here, like activities and resources, and you can actually put, say, recommended ones, so that the items that the administrator recommends. But this is also one of those things that's going to change in 5.1 when we go there. And so I'll give you a quick, brief look at that after we upgrade to 5.1. But anyway, basically that's all it is for upgrading to 5.0. It's not so painful. The most painful part is making sure that the scheduled tasks for transferring the question categories and questions over to the new system, the new question bank mods, that completes safely and correctly. That may require some troubleshooting. In my case, it did require some troubleshooting. So when I was upgrading several of my servers, I had to do a little bit of jiggery pokery and things like that. Most of those issues that I had, though, have already been patched. So just make sure you've done that git pull before you do any upgrades, and you shouldn't run into the problems that I had. They've already been fixed. It's just a matter of the timing when I was doing it. Anyway, that's fairly smooth. I can switch to turn editing off. Everything else looks fairly similar. There, of course, were some significant changes in 5.0, which included the new AI provider. For example, there's Olama is now here, and Azure and OpenAI. In 5.1, Deepseek should be coming in, so that's another thing that we're expecting. Okay, there's my test course. It comes with a lorem ipsum description. Okay, so let's continue, shall we, and move from 5.0 to 5.1, because currently we're on 5.0.2, but 5.1 is where we want to be. Now 5.1, as I mentioned, is being released next week, so we can't just do it next week. I can't jump to the future. So I'm going to do something, or I'm going to run a command that you guys should never run. Unless you're crazy like me and like running these things on Vagrants to just try it out. But yeah, okay, if I was going to do it properly again, put your Moodle into maintenance mode, take your backups, make sure your plugins are all up to date. As I said, I don't have plugins, and this is a throwaway server anyway, so I'm not taking a backup of it, but you would. And in here, what we're going to do is do the git change of branch. Now, git branch -a. If we look at all the branches, what you'll notice here is that currently I've got 405 stable. That's where we started. These are the tracked branches, right? 405 stable, 500's there. Main is there, which is the current work in progress version. But there is no 501 yet. And there won't be a 501 until next week. Until Moodle 501 is officially released, you won't see a 501 branch. So in the interim, what we're going to do is we're going to check out main, which is something you should never do. I'm only doing it, but imagine that I've written Moodle 501 stable, because that's what it would be, okay? So if I go git checkout, Moodle 501 stable, okay, just pretend that's what I actually typed, okay? Moodle 501 stable. I'm typing in main, but just pretend it's 501 stable, because that's where it would be. Okay, so we're in maintenance mode, we've gone to 501 stable, and now the next thing, of course, to do is to run our upgrade.php. And this is where we're going to get some funky messaging coming up, because it's going to say this, the version of Moodle you're about to upgrade or install or upgrade contains unstable release candidate. Yep, because I'm grabbing it from, this is the development one. So it's actually going to give us release candidate 1 for 5.1, which is build 926, because it's the latest one. Once you do this, then you can't go back, right? So please note that this process can take a long time. Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. And you might say, hey, this looks pretty similar. Adam, didn't you say some weirdness was going to happen? Yeah, wait for the weirdness. It's a-coming. Okay, so that's done. So now if I go to my Moodle here and check it, you know, oh, wait a minute. File not found. That's a bit weird. File not found. And it's not even poking me in the right direction yet, right? So if I try to take it out of maintenance mode now, so I'll disable maintenance mode. There we go. Disable maintenance mode is done. If I refresh here, still getting a nothing on the /my/courses.php. What if I hit enter on that? No, still nothing on that. And my Moodle is essentially bricked. Well, why did that happen? Okay, so let's have a look at, oops, I don't want it to max screen. I just want it to be like there. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got in this directory now. Now you might do in an ls like this, you might say, hey, wait a minute, where do all my Moodle files go? Well, if you watched the r.php, that one, you'll realize that we have now the public folder right there. And that's where the bulk of the Moodle stuff is, and that's where the web browser should be pointing to at the moment. But remember, pwd, it's currently pointing at /srv/moodle/www. So public, that's where our actual Moodle code is underneath public here. And things are going to change with this as well. A lot of this stuff might be moved out of here. Plugins in general are expected to move up one directory and things like this. And here's our r.php, as we were saying the other day. Now, r.php is not optional in 5.0, in 5.1, sorry. It must be configured. It's necessary. Unfortunately and weirdly, and this is something that I think might be a bit of an error, a check for it doesn't seem to appear in the environment variables thing. So, I'm not sure what gives. Anyway, you're supposed to have that configured for Moodle 4.0. Also, another thing that's a bit weird here, if I do ls-la, I'll shrink myself down again. If we look up here, we can see that this config.php exists. And if I go to config.php, and if I go nano config.php, you might say, hang on a minute, that doesn't look like any config.php I've ever seen before. And that's because this is a shim. And it's a shim that just says, hey, if you're expecting a config.php here, look one directory up, because that's where it's at. And this is a great security improvement because it's, you know, if PHP isn't working, the contents of the config.php file won't be broadcast out to the world. Instead, just that generic file saying, hey, look one directory up will be broadcast, and that's a lot safer than, say, sending as plain text the database credentials and stuff like that. So anyway, that's where it is. So what we've got to do now, PWD, is we've got to actually tell our web browser, our web server software, to send the requests to this /srv/moodle/www. That's where it originally was, but send it also one directory further down into the public directory. So let's change that now. I'm currently on Nginx. If you're on Apache, I think I demonstrated that on the Apache part of the r.php video. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I've got other videos on that, but sudo nano /etc/nginx /sites enabled vagrant.wisecap.net, because that's where I am. And you can see here I've got my root directive here, and it's saying go to /www, and we just want to add /public. Right. Now also, I got a little bit funny earlier. Had a at Nutton. Also, you might want to change this one here as well while we're in here, because r.php needs to be set up. And so at the moment, I've got it saying first attempt to serve a request as a file, then as a directory, and otherwise 404 it. And the @Nutton actually is a location thing that I put in. And I added this in because the current... actually, is it current? Have they changed it? I don't know. Let's have a quick look. I'm going to search for the Moodle docs. Just give me a sec. Aha. So I, through the power of pausing it while I actually get this web page up, this is the Nginx documentation for 5.0, and it's talking about how we might want to have the routing engine configured like this with the try file saying, hey, the URI, and then r.php. It does say as well that you can put this in the location /php thing, which is, to my mind, a little bit weird, because, yeah, I mean, this is only going to work with PHP files if it's got a PHP file, but not sure how that would work with, say, things like course to manager or something like that, which it's supposed to do. But anyway, here it also says jump to @routed, and the reason, or @rooted, and the reason I think that that's actually wrong in particular is because it looks like what it actually is expecting is @routed or @rooted should be appearing here as the rest of it, like what I actually did here with @Nutton. So try as the URI, then try again with a slash on the end, so pretend it's a directory and see how you go. And if that fails, give it Nutton. And Nutton, the @Nutton thing, this is an Nginx thing, whereas you can say, okay, skip to the location @Nutton and do what it says there. So here, down here, I've got my location @Nutton, and that says just return a 404. Right, so it's going to try those other things, and if it doesn't work, it's going to just say, hey, 404, guys. Right? These aspects here of the 404 area index pages probably aren't necessary anymore, but that's not the main thing I want to do. What I want to do here is configure the changes that are necessary for sure to run it. And those two are the root needs to be changed to add this public subdirectory in there. And below that, we also want to change this @nothing thing, which otherwise might have been configured as a 404 or just left blank actually, and change that to add a /r.php. Okay, so I'm going to save that file and exit out of there. And sudo nginx -t to test to see if I'm not going to break Nginx when I restart it, and that seems okay there. Now just one thing here is we know that it's in the public subdirectory, so let's try just accessing public here, vagrant.wisecap.net/public, and see what happens. Nothing. Nothing happened. That's what happened. Okay. Public with a slash. Again, nothing happened. It's trying to bounce back to my and stuff like that, but it's just not working. And part of this is because if you look inside cd dot nano config.php, if you look in here, blah 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 Moodle, you can see that in my www.root I don't have /public mentioned here. If I add that, that might be a way to fix it, you might think, but let's see what happens. Okay, added /public to my my thing, and this is what you get. So there's actually an error if you try to fix it this way, and it's going to say incorrect config www.root in config.php. It should not end in /public. And this is something I am so glad has not been overlooked. But the whole point, right? the whole point of I'm just going to remove that, save and exit. The whole point of having the public directory and not having these files in, accessible to the web. The whole point is to not have these files accessible to the web. And also there'll probably also be a vendor directory in here as well later. Actually, yeah, sure, I'll cover that in this video. Why not? But the whole point is to make sure that these files here, like this config.php, etc., is not accessible to the outside web. This should not be visible to the outside world. And in particular, this config.php, the admin folders and stuff like that, we don't want this visible to the outside world. And so that's the whole point. If this were the web root and public were just a subdirectory, that's bypassing the security benefits you're getting by taking this outside of web visible space. So that fix of just changing your config.php to say, oh yeah, it's in /public now, that's not going to work, and it shouldn't work. And I'm very glad it doesn't work. I'm very glad that that creates this error message, because it absolutely should create that error message. Anyway, so our Nginx configuration has been updated though, remember, and that's the proper way of fixing this, is to say that our web root is no longer ending in /ww, but goes all the way up to public. This is our web visible component. So let's just restart Nginx, and those effects should take effect. Reload Nginx. Oops, Nginx. Now with that reloaded, this should start working-ish. No, it's not going to work. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. /public. Okay. That should start working-ish. Okay. So now let's go to site administration, server. Let's go to environment and see what we've got. Okay. We've got down here composer vendor directory not found. And this just says, this composer install blah, 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 blah has not been run. make sure it has been run, or if you're not using component, make sure the vendor directory exists, and that's all it really checks for at the moment. This is going to come up more later, and Composer is likely to become the default way of installing instead of using Git. But at the moment, it's not there yet. So Composer is not quite ready, but you can run this this command, and I will do so in just a moment. But the only thing it's going to do is it's going to read the JSON and things like that. Oh, by the way, you need Composer installed, but on Debian systems, simple sudo apt install Composer will do ya. Sudo apt, sure, I'll run it. I'm pretty sure I've already got it installed here. Yeah, it's already installed, but that would do it. It'd just take a little bit longer. You can just run this in the www folder, so the root of Moodle, which now I feel like I shouldn't be calling it www because it's not really, but whatever. Anyway, do that. All that's going to do is generate the vendor directory. So this vendor directory here didn't exist 5 seconds ago. Oh, yeah. Yeah, see? Public, here's the ls from just before I ran that command, no vendor. And here's the ls from after I ran the command, and here's vendor. And that's all it did. It created this vendor directory, which is Composer files and stuff like that. And that's all that does. And there is a warning message about that inside of your environment. If you see it, safe to ignore at the moment. 5.1 does not seem to do anything other than set up a vendor folder. So watch this space. That's probably going to be more important later, but doesn't really bother us right now. Anyway, so that's that done. Okay, now if I go back to my courses, I can test the routing system. And I can test it by going to my course, go course/to/manage. Manage, curse to manage. And you can see at the moment, it's not actually fully configured, and it should be. So there's still one more thing that needs to happen in my config.php. And this is the last of the weirdness. And I told you there was weirdness. So if I come in here and go nano config.php, now there's a directive that I've got commented out here, router configured or router configured. And router configured equals true. You should definitely add that line after you've set up the r.php thing. And that should get rid of that problem there. And the router is now able to do its thing, which it's doing now. If I just refresh the screen, now I've got a course administration page that I can access from a router. So this is a routed section. Okay, so that finally has got us completely, fully, and wonderfully up to date on Moodle 5.1. If I check for available updates, it's going to say your Moodle code is up to date on an unstable release candidate development code, which is about to be released in a week. So, yeah. Here I am on 5.1 release candidate 1, and next week the actual proper branch will be released and ready to go. Okay, so what else do we need to know for this? Okay, 5.1, what has changed? I'll give you a bit of a sneak peek, okay? Although I really should do a separate video on this, and I might in the future. But anyway, if we go back to our courses here, we can see test course. If you come in here, I did say that I teased a few of these things earlier, but the activity chooser is going to be different. So if we come in here, there's our activity resource subsection. They were both there just before, but now we've got this assessment, collaboration, communication, resources, and interactive content. So we've got these different categories here that make it a bit faster to find things. Another thing that's considered an improvement is, for example, if I want to add an H5P or a lesson or a quiz. Oh, by the way, there's some overlap here. You can see H5P is here, and H5P is also here because it can be used for assessment or for interactive content. And I think that's a nice touch because these categories do not have to, for example, communication, forum. Absolutely, I think that's a communication tool. but forum collaboration is where it was first shoved. So I'm glad that this is in both this way, because sometimes I want to use it as a communication tool, sometimes I want to use it as a collaboration tool. Anyway, normally, just as normal, you can click, and that's going to start setting up a forum. Or is it? It's actually not. And one of the reasons where I'll get out of the way, let me make myself invisible. It doesn't actually work until you hit this add button down the bottom right hand corner. That's actually listed on the tracker as an improvement. And yeah, I guess so. Kinda, you know. By the way, I can also add my starred ones here for my things that I regularly use, so that's nice. So yeah, I guess, requiring one more click is, I guess, kinda, yeah, an improvement. Some would disagree. I'm actually on the fence on this one. Is requiring one more click an improvement, or is it not? I mean, I can see accessibility arguments for it. At the same time, accessibility arguments for not having yet another click required on what is, I think, a button that's way too small. So I think this add button, on my Moodle, I'll probably add some more CSS to make this much bigger. But anyway, it's listed as an improvement, so okay. Anyway, so that's one of the changes. The other change, I think I showed you the question banks before, so yeah, we did when we went over to 5.0, and they're pretty much the same still. You have your multiple question banks. Another video on the question banks will come later. Another thing was, we were talking earlier about the assignment, and so if we go to the grading page of the assignment now, one big difference is, you see the squishy bits now? Well, I've still got the option to, zoom in and make it a sort of a full screen sort of thing, so it's less squishy, but that's kind of clunky. But now what I can do is just this. I can move that across and de-squishify this and just read this is where the submission by the student would be. Read that, and then I can check that out. Like that. Oh, and if I have PDF files, feedback files that I've already made, later on I'll be able to look at the file here and the list of submissions. And if I look at this list of submissions, if I give, I think I need to change the settings briefly. If under feedback types I have feedback files listed as well, save and display. Let's go to grade. Yay. No, view all submissions, sorry. Feedback files. If there's a feedback file in here as well, nowadays what's going to happen is if this student downloads that feedback file, it'll be logged here that they've downloaded it and that they've looked at the feedback files. So you'll be able to actually see, as a teacher, you'll be able to see whether the students actually were looking and paying attention to the feedback files or whether they haven't seen it yet, which can be very useful if you're using something like assignment as a teaching tool rather than an assessment tool. So then, because the number one thing you might be interested in is, have the students receive the feedback, yes or no? So that's a really nice little change that they've, that's definitely an improvement, that one. Okay, so other than that, a few other things. So sneak peek, what else have we got? I thought I had some notes around here somewhere, but let me see. The shim. Okay. Oh yeah. A couple of other things I'd probably want to mention is, there's another thing in the code as well that I'll mention in a moment. But you public directory to activity chooser new assignments. No, that's pretty much the main things. We did mention as well that the AI providers, that this new AI provider is, new AI provider of Deepseek is now here. So you can set up a Deepseek one with the Deepseek API key if that's what floats your boat. I'm still all armor for the win, guys. But anyway, if you're using Deepseek, by all means, set up your Deepseek instances there. You know what? I'm still invisible. I'm going to make myself visible again. Yeah, there we go. So Deepseek, yeah, go for it. If you want to have Deepseek, you can now natively just plug it straight in. Another thing that's actually great is, although it's not likely to display on this one, no. But you can, and I haven't actually tried this out myself yet, but you can, apparently one of the changes is that you're able now to configure what AI functions are useful, are usable by students, say, at this level. So at the course level or at the item level, you can say, hey, in here, there's this file or something. This is a test resource. Oh, that's a bad example. In this forum, okay, in this forum, do I want my students to be able to say, you know, summarize, use the AI tools for summarizing stuff and stuff like that? You can actually set that as part of these devices, these you know, modules and stuff, and at the course level as well. Now, I don't believe you can set that unless you already have an AI configured, and I don't, so I can't really demonstrate that in this video. But if you've got an AI set up to work with your Moodle, then give it a shot in 5.1 and maybe let me know in the comments how you went. Okay, so that's about it, I think, for this video, which has become 41 minutes long. That's not too bad. I'm coming in under an hour. That's actually better than I was expecting. Okay, so in sum, there are a bunch of things that you need to be careful of when converting your, well, upgrading your Moodle site to Moodle 5.1. You need to make sure that, okay, so from 4.5 to 5.0 is pretty standard. But when you're going 4.5 to 5.0, it's just, you know, you put your site in maintenance mode, you do your git pull, then you make sure that you're upgrade.php, and then you change the branch across from 4.5 to 405 stable to 500 stable, and that'll upgrade you to Moodle 5.0, and you don't really need to worry too much about messing with the web server config or anything like that. But when you upgrade to 5.1, you need to change the web server config to make sure that webroot has /public at the end of it, so that we're only looking at that directory and keeping the rest of the Moodle code and the config.php, keeping that hidden. And also need to make sure that the r.php is configured properly in the web router, in the web server as the fallback, and also it needs to be configured in the config.php as router configured needs to be set to true, and that directive needs to be added to config.php. Oh, there was one last thing before we go. I guess this is kind of a bonus, but for security purposes, I will mention it. Let me see. Back to explanation mode. Yeah. So when we're in here, if I say here, if I go in here, actually, I'm going to, first of all, look in here. Let's go server reports security checks. Now, you can see that even on this Vagrant, most of my stuff's pretty good, except for security cookies, no HTTPS, but my writable config.php is not writable. All right, but now, because there's a shim, there are actually two config.phps in a sense. So there's this one here that's in my /Moodle/www. That's a config.php, but public, inside of public, this one's also a config.php, right? The shim, wherever it is, there it is. The shim is also a config.php. Now, both of them must not be writable by the web server, because if you look at, config.php. If you look at this one here, you can see that this also has no closing tags on it and things like that. So that means if a web shell, for example, added some code to this file, that would be bad. So you don't want that to happen. So if you are doing this, in order to reap the benefits of, no, I'm not going to save it. If you are going to reap the benefits, then you should definitely make sure that this is not web writable. config.php, and you can see at the moment, it's just owned by Vagrant, so it's not writable by the web user. So let's say chmod, change mode, go plus w. Let's make, whoops, config.php, need the file name. All right, so now, whoops, what did I do? How'd that space get in there? All right. So now you can see it's writable by everybody. This is the shim, config.php. It's the shim. It's not actually my config.php, but with that in, this should trigger this as well anyway. Let's see if it does. There it is, writable config.php. So there's my config.php is writable by PHP scripts, and that would be bad as well. So make sure the shim is protected too. Okay. UG minus W, and they can read it. You don't want them writing it. Actually, let's check. So if I do that, refresh that, now my writable config.php is nice and okay again. Let's go down one level. CD space stop up. Let's change this one to writable. Make that one writable. Now, this is my actual config.php file with my settings in there. And you can see www.data is the group, and actually that is set to read and writable. And so let me see if I refresh the screen. No, that's actually saying okay. Okay. So being outside, it's only, this check now is only caring about the shim. All right. Yeah. I don't think you'd want the web shells to be able to touch something, a directory up. Ideally, I think this security check should be triggered by either the shim or the real file. But anyway, that's just me. I will just leave it in my video to say, guys, be careful of that. Make sure they're both protected. Because it doesn't hurt anyone to have them both protected, and it might save your hiney. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, I'm going to finish up here because it's getting late and I want to go to bed. I'll see you in the next video, which not exactly sure when, but I will try to make them a little bit sooner than I've been doing so recently. All right, catch you in the next one. Until then, enjoy the release of 5.1 because this is going to be fun, especially with the user interface improvements. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye.